Welcome to MTMG's IT Roundtable, where we bring the power of human connections to the tech world. Our experts become part of your team, so whatever tech problem is keeping you up at night, we can help you solve it. The spirit of aloha and cybersecurity. Not used to hearing those two together? Today's guest will change your mind.
Joining us today is Charlene Ignacio from Fornix Marketing. She is, you know what? I'm not even going to go too far into an introduction. Why don't you start with telling us a little bit more about your history? What brought you to this point in your life?
I think that's what's fun about our lives, guys. It's a journey. And if you're open to it, you're going to allow yourself to move along the flow of life where you're going to accept the bumps and bruises. You're going to accept the wins and the losses. A lot of leaders want to say, I've always had all this success. And I think, well, we're built on both, right? We've got to accept the wins and the losses in order to be real leaders. Because I don't think people are in a technology game to deal with technology. They're in a game to deal. And so I love that question. My history and my go-to when I look at my life is entrepreneurship has been the vehicle to allow me to have a life, to be able to choose the things I want and to be able to use that to help others. I think my core value and why I got this was I want to have a seamless approach to life, and I want to remove every single barrier so that I can say, I can do that, or I'll find the answer to that, or why are you telling me no? Why can't we look at it this way? And so really, if you look at my life and my experience over the last 20 years, being a serial entrepreneur has allowed me to cross over multiple industries, be a CEO of multiple verticals, and be able to just live life without any rules.
What a great, God, I love that. Just such a fresh way of looking at things. And it's obvious there's a little Hawaii in you.
Of course, that's why I wear my Aloha shirt today.
Absolutely. Could you give us a quick background on some of the organizations that you've started throughout your career?
Oh, yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I remember back in high school, I started an organization called Nakoa, and that word in Hawaiian means the strong. And it was actually for students who had disabilities and had any type of barrier to learning. And one of the initiatives that I told my teacher, I said, the reason why I want this is because I want inclusivity. I want everyone to belong, and I don't want it to be a variance of, well, because you can't do this, you can't do this. I wanted to remove the blocks. And so that's been my story the entire time I've started any project or been a part of organizations. I have to win the value that they have. I don't want to win on all the external things. I want to know what their culture, their beliefs, their values are, because I'm going to give 110% in my time that I'll never get back. And so in that journey, I have been a part of Startup Global, which is an international incubator that allows people to come in with an idea and actually execute it. I've built tech programs with a 54-hour startup where you can come in and 54 hours leave with the business. So I've been in technology before it was cool, right, guys? Everyone thinks technology is cool today. And it was like, where were you before? Before MySpace, right? Think about it. Where were we all? So my career has been built on looking at things literally with no box. And so not only the organizations with Startup Global, being able to bring innovation to the table, I've asked questions like, so why can't we create a nonprofit? Why does there have to be a stigma? Why can't we do things a little differently? And then, of course, it's ventured my life into technology, which has allowed innovation. I think that's why people love technology, because everything is possible and there's no rules to the game. And that's why today, being a leader in the cybersecurity and the managed service provider industry has been really fun, because I think I bring back the humanization part of it, where a lot of people forget that these rules are placed to protect us from ourselves, as well as give us a roadmap so that we can do our own best to help other people stay in this environment with some boundaries, some rules, because we are so inundated by technology that we forget that people are people, right? 80% of breaches are because of people. They're not because of technology flaws. It's because of people. And so that's just a little history of this little aloha spirit that's come across the country into the mainland, where I don't like the snow still, but I live where there is snow. And so I'm learning how to live with it, but I still love the ocean and the sunshine.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Great points.
Really, absolutely. It's such a breath of fresh air too. But so you're now leading up Fornix Marketing, and you specialize in helping vendors strengthen their channel programs for MSPs. What are some of the most common challenges vendors face when entering the MSP channel? And how does Fornix help them overcome them?
Well, there's three things that I think vendors miss. And here's the thing. Vendors have their own KPIs, but sometimes they miss the fact that the KPI that they need to really hit is what the vendor or the partner needs. And what I mean by that is when I'm a small business owner, I don't want my account manager trying to tell me how to run a business when they've never ran a business. And I think we forget that part in our partner programs. And that's why they come to Fornix, because they're like, Char, we're so tech heavy. We don't understand how to help, right, our business owner reach MRR. Like we talk about the nuts and bolts and we talk about all the bells and whistles of the solution. And I'm like, but how are you helping this business owner take away the stress, the liability, increase their revenue, get them ready to deliver for their clients? Because you're still assuming that this person is just so tech heavy that don't have to run a business. They have to run a business. So that's the first problem. Second problem is liability. As we know, right, FTC rulings coming hard on all of our MSPs. Some states are regulating MSPs now. They're requiring a lot of, I hate to say this, but they're requiring MSPs either to carry the load of the liability or be the one that's obligated to fulfill when there's a breach or some sort of cyber attack. And our MSPs are like this bullseye on their back. And so second is vendors are not helping them lower the liability because they're not understanding that this person who's executing this tool or this strategy has to deal with it every single day. So they're not focusing on the end user. And then the last thing, guys, and this is probably common to you guys because you do this every single day, is a lot of our MSPs are transitioning into an MSSP. So they're not sure how to navigate as an MSSP because they don't understand all the frameworks of controls. They don't understand their state and local legislation, like the federal rulings that are going on. And so there's a lack of education on how to apply the solution to what the current stream of obligation is for our MSPs.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot to it. It reminds me of like a person who opens up a restaurant, has no idea they're a good chef, but they don't know inventory. They don't know anything else about running a restaurant. So very important. Now, you've got a strong channel chief background. And so how's your experience in this role influence the way that you approach building successful channel strategies for your clients?
I have to tell you, I think community is the new next push for channel development. Being from Hawaii, a lot of my core values come from having an understanding that when you're in a hurricane, your best support is your neighbor. When you're going through something tough and hard and there's no supplies coming in because the hurricanes like turn out the ocean, like it totally is overwhelming everybody and people are running away. I think when you come to building a community, that is the next initiative that channel needs to go to. And I think that's a natural fit for us at Fornix because we believe in community. Community is what's going to take us and grow our channel program. But when you talk about vendors, Joe, this is the thing. I believe channel, because it's focused on community first and not vendor first, it is going to allow people to grow and scale quickly their programs because they're focusing on two things. And my clients know this. One is that your solution has to be able to be integrated into that MSP or MSSP's environment seamlessly. If it takes 2 years to integrate something, if it takes that much of a lift, a lot of MSPs don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that. Okay, that's the first thing. Second is we have clients all around the world who come into the US market, or my US market channel clients go into international markets. And so we have to be able to streamline what I consider the formula of success, which is when you have a channel solution, such as a cybersecurity solution, such as an EDR, MDR, or VPN, you have to be able to apply it specifically to that industry that they're in and the country that they're in. And so what I mean by that is, in my recent trip, I was in Australia. We launched a client into the Australia market. What was interesting was that we had done our homework before we got there. So we knew that when we were selling this vendor solution, we understood the pain points of the industry there. We understood the needs of MRR there. And we understood the MSP's journey to becoming an MSP because a lot of different countries are controlled by one or two frameworks. Where the US, you got over 250 frameworks depending on what day of the week it is. And so that's the thing. Understanding the frameworks of control as a channel chief is critical. Also, knowing what the channel is all about, and that's about community. And so I think it's a merge of knowing the technology and the frameworks, but also more importantly, knowing that you're in the people business.
I think this is why I was so drawn to working with you, just because your focus on community and developing and listening to what the who your client is, whether it's the MSP or their customer or whatever, the focus on what is their need. It's not about what you can sell them. It's not about the technology. It's about what is the problem you're solving? What is the pain that you're trying to alleviate for these people? What's the barrier you're trying to remove? That's what's so critical. One of the things that you've touched on a bit, but a lot of channel programs fail because they're too focused on revenue. That's all they're thinking about. They're not thinking about other aspects. What are some strategies vendors can implement to better address MSP's pain points?
Well, I think part of it is, one, have you ever been an MSP? I think a lot of people come at them going, well, I'm an account manager and I've got to make sure you're spending this much money with us and buying these solutions. And I'm thinking, have you ever been a business owner? Have you ever understood that I'm dealing with payroll? I'm dealing with rent. I'm dealing with utilities. I'm dealing with insurance. Before you really push your agenda to the MSP business owner, I think you need to understand that they're a whole business. They're not just one person selling your one thing. They've got to fit it into their staff. They've got to understand and train their team. They've got to understand how to run a help desk. They've got to do QBRs. A business is a whole person. And I think a vendor who misses that is the reason why they're always known as they're just worried about how much revenue I'm making for them, right? How many MSPs will come to you and tell you, when I work with this vendor, it's because I like the solution. I'm dealing with the frustration that they look at me as a number.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our vendors, which is a big problem, they take the clients. They literally take the client from the MSP and say, thanks for doing all the work. Now we're going to take them over. And I'm like, wow, that is just not integrity driven at all, right? But guys, you know who they are. And if you continue to spend your dollars with them and your time, it allows the behavior to continue. And this is the third thing. And Paul, Joe, I just want to be, and I want to be as transparent as possible because this is what I hear from my clients, is they have some unrealistic contracts, right? It's like, if your product's amazing and good, don't worry about it. They're going to stay with you. But if you have to stronghold them into a contract and force them to stay with you, the likelihood of you delivering an experience that's amazing is going to be driven by the fact that you're trying to control them, which is part of the reason why sometimes these partners are looking for other partners, because they're like, wow, I don't want to be pigeonholed to this contract that I can't move and do other things. If your product's awesome and amazing, why are you worried about me leaving?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So Fornix focuses on launching and growing channel programs. What steps do you recommend for your vendors to make their solution stacks more profitable for the MSPs?
I love this question, Joe, because there are 3 points. One is you've got to get really clear on how you're going to establish an MRR model for your end user. And Paul, you said this 9 out of 10 times already. We need to worry about the end user, right? That end user and partner is how you work your formula backwards. Don't worry about yourself, worry about them. So I'll use pen testing because that's usually the tip of the stack, right? For both an MSP and MSSP, it's a good hybrid solution. When you're looking at a pen test, right now, because of all the regulations that are coming down on different industries, they're required to have a pen test. So understanding what your end user needs to do in order to be compliant, and 2, how does it connect to the revenue and the business operations, is going to help you as a vendor understand, I need to sell it at a certain price point so that my MSP can make revenue and that their end user is going to actually buy it. A lot of times people will charge $71,000 to $80,000 for a pen test, and my MSPs are like, Char, I can only sell maybe 1 a year. And so all of that effort to sell 1 isn't worth it. So when you look at your revenue model vendors, I want you to look at how are you helping them make the MRR they need so that they keep buying your product and solution. Second thing for revenue is work the number backwards. All right. If you need to make X amount of dollars per account manager, and this is the vendor, you need to work and say, okay, how many of those touches and conversations do I need to have? What does that revenue look like so that I can make a relationship instead of a transaction? Because you will skyrocket your revenue when they know that they can come to you and that you're going to be a trusted advisor to them and their business. I don't want you to read a script. I don't want you to put them on a little checkbox, because the thing is, quality over quantity is always going to make more money. And then last but not least, this is something that is common when I help build out channel programs, especially for clients who have a SaaS solution, is you're going to scale with technology, right? You can scale. There's not a lot of human time behind it. So you want to make sure that the experience that they have is what I consider seamless. Because if the dashboard is working well, if they're providing education and training, you're providing all of the assets for their marketing materials, their sales materials, you're helping them understand their customer's journey and how that works, you're creating an experience that's just beyond your SaaS solution. You're actually creating a business experience. And so that's how you increase your revenue, vendors, is you look at the business as a whole and then you work yourself backwards. How do I get to my end revenue goal by making sure that I'm relationship focused, that I'm providing quality and value, that I'm not forcing this MSP to take a smaller cut from their margins?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. It's a lot about relationship building. That's so critical. But specifically, can you share some insights on how vendors can cultivate stronger, longer lasting relationships with their MSPs?
Oh, gosh, I love this question. This is one of my most favorite questions, Paul. So thank you. First things first, guys, we're in the people business, right? Joe, Paul, you guys agree?
Absolutely.
We're in the
Yep.
people business. Last time I checked, the person who gives you a credit card is a person. It isn't a credit card. And so I like to always tell people, you're not in the transaction business, you're in the people business. So first things first, guys, when you are learning about this ideal client profile, remember, you're looking at it as a whole person, okay? So when you build a relationship, look at them as a whole. Get to know what their pain points are. What are their goals? Why are they in business? Did they start an MSP because they left a job and said, hey, I'm tired of working for a boss, I'm going to work on my own? Did they build an MSP because they were trying to solve a problem? Some of my MSSPs who are moving from an MSP to an MSSP, they're realizing that cybersecurity is the next venture, that they need to add those solutions to their stack. So look at the person as a whole. And here, guys, this is how you do it. When I look at a people business, I look at why aren't they increasing their sales? Maybe they don't have enough team. Maybe they're not making enough revenue. Maybe they don't understand how to be a profitable business. So there's other partners. So you want to be a resource for other referrals. Okay, this is a value add. It's like everyone has that one person, Joe. I'm sure you've met this person, or Paul. You meet this one person, they know everybody. They're like, hey, how do I get this? Oh, I know the person for you. Be a resource, right? Because they're going to trust you and they're going to understand that you think of them as a whole person instead of a transaction. Two, I think this is a big problem for a lot of our vendors in the space when they're revenue driven, which is important. And I understand that. That is an important part of the formula. I get that. But if you're requiring your business owner to buy from you and you're not doing a QBR with them, a quarterly business review, you're not engaging with them and just checking in on them and saying, hey, what are your goals, guys, of your business? Like, what's happening this quarter? If you're not touching in with them, I love the call when it's like, hey, I got to make my revenue goal. Can you buy 10, 20, 30% more? And they're like, you haven't talked to us for 6 months and now you're asking us to buy? Click. Okay. And then the last thing, and there's so many, guys, I just want to pour in. So I'm trying to stop because I don't want to be like, hey, just stuck on this one question. The third thing, guys, is when you look at the business as a whole, I want you guys to sit with them and say, in my QBR with you, what are some other industries you're going after? Do you know that we have other partners who are doing X, Y, and Z? Share best practices. Because I am sure this MSP isn't thinking of everything because you assume they know, because shouldn't they know, Char? That's not their responsibility. Your responsibility as a vendor is to educate, over communicate, and continue that over and over in this relationship that you have with our MSPs.
That's great. I keep thinking of, hey, I got a guy for that. He's your fifth. You always know someone who's got a guy for everything, right?
Yes, but isn't that an awesome way to keep retention of a relationship?
Absolutely.
And it's so easy. It doesn't even have a cost.
That's right. That's right. So you emphasize bridging the gap between vendors and MSPs. And do you have specific tools or strategies that you provide to ensure the smooth communication and the alignment between the two?
Oh. Yes. So here's 3 tools that we have, guys. One is we always recommend a mechanism of PRM or a marketing solution that's an ongoing education strategy, right? Get that consistent content in front of them, right? I don't want it to be email by death, but more email by content. And here's the rule. The subject should not be about you, vendor. It should be about how they use your solution to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first strategy. Second, and this is probably the most powerful thing that you could do, is 1, stop and qualify maybe top 25, maybe top 30 of your current customers and get feedback from them in a one-to-one. And ask them, why are you working with us? Ask them for a true evaluation of your own business. Do a QBR on yourselves. Okay. A QBR, you guys can make your own or follow some templates that are out there. But the QBR, there's two sections that I like to always add to QBRs when I build out a channel program. One is, how is the vendor relating back to the customer? And two is, how can we make our business better to serve you? Those two questions, those two mechanisms, guys, will allow you to grow your company so quick because they're solving some of your internal problems that you didn't know you had. And here's a third. I don't care what technology you use, whether it's PRM or it's the CRM, all the acronyms that there are. The third thing is you want to be as close in proximity. No matter how much technology is used every single day in our life, are you visible to your partners? Are you doing LinkedIn Lives? Are you in social media? Do you have a Facebook group? Are you high touch where they can say, hey, I've got a problem. Can you guys help me? Or are you 15 deep before they even get to their account manager? Because you've got to simulate automation and you're putting all these chatbots in place and you're using AI. And the guy's like, man, I'm never going to get an answer. This takes forever. So remember, guys, we're in the people business. So use technology and tools to maintain a human relationship, not an automated one.
This is what you've been talking about is exactly why we created this business. We've been in the industry for years watching our clients struggle with some of the vendors they've been working with. And I've seen it just in companies that I've been working for that they've been accepting things they really shouldn't, that there's better ways to do things. And clients don't need to suffer. Whether it's an MSP or a mid-market enterprise or a small to medium business, it's all the same thing. It's all about, well, how can I help you? What is it that I can do for you? It's funny, Joe and I were talking about this the other day, that I couldn't stand when I was in sales years ago. I had to sell my network or my device or my whatever. And if it wasn't the right fit for the person, I just couldn't do that. And what we've built with our organization is just, we wanted to get so many different tools in the tool belt so that when that customer says, hey, I need somebody that can help me fix this problem, we've got the answers for them. And if we don't, we can help them refine what they're looking for and go find a better solution. It may not be us. That's okay. We just want to help. And I think you've hit the nail on the head that if you start with that as your ethos, your guiding light, then you work backwards and okay, then we'll get some sales in along the way, but the people will begin to know and that community gets built around that. Hey, we can trust these people. They're going to give us a straight answer. They're going to find the right tools for us. So I think you've really nailed it. So
But you're successful, right, Paul? Because you started from that point instead of a transaction point. And you can always tell when the vendor is starting from a transaction point versus a serving position. You can always tell immediately. It's like so clear as water, right? You're like, see, this is the reason why it's not working. And they're so married to the problem or they are the problem that they're so close to it, they can't see it.
Yep. Well,
so they got to take a step.
My only problem with your analogy is I'm from Boston and we have very dirty water. So that really isn't very clear, but
I love that. Well, come to Hawaii, everybody. You know what I mean? Every January, I take my clients and partners to Hawaii, and so I can't wait. So let's go.
Well, I think we're going to have to figure out some way to be able to do that. I know my wife would love to do that. And actually, it's funny, we're talking about doing the same thing. My wife and I have spent the last 8 years, living in either Ireland or Wales. And that's part of what we want to do with our team and our partners is bring them over to share why we've fallen in love with those locations as well. Granted, Wales in the winter is nowhere near as good as Hawaii. However, it is a wonderful place. Back to the day at hand. As the CMO of the Managed Service Providers Association of America, what key initiatives or trends are you focusing on to support the growth and development of MSPs in today's market?
Well, I appreciate that because as an association, the three of us really lean into one. Dave, who's our president, he started off his career as an MSP. And when he started, he felt like there was no resources. There weren't people to connect to. And so he built this community around the idea of, I want to be a resource for people. So that culture, that initiative, that integrity, a part of it, when he found me on LinkedIn, he said, Char, I know that we can reach more people. Will you please help us on this mission? And so I was drawn to the association because of that intention. And so our vendors and our partners that come, and even our MSPs and MSSPs, they come with the intention of, I know I'm going to get the information I need because I trust the integrity of who's running and leading this organization. So I'm very thankful to run alongside with Dave and Adam and myself. Here's the three things that we see, guys. One is MSPs are getting literally targeted for a lot of the mistakes and issues that their customers are non-compliant with. They're not doing the things that they've been recommended to do. And so a lot of the MSPs are unfortunately becoming the target of liability. And so we have taken a position to help educate the MSPs and encourage them to actually learn their local, state, and federal guidelines in the state that they do business. That's a humongous issue right now for a lot of MSPs. They are becoming the target. And of course, they have to look at their MSAs. They need to figure out their vendor contracts just to limit the liability, right, guys? How many people can do a $250,000 fine? You can't. A small business would be closed from that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the reputation and fixing all of that. There's just so much, there's just so much strife right now for MSPs. And so a lot of them are like, sure, I am so gun shy because every single day I need to figure out how am I going to get sued because the client did something that I told them not to do and they did it anyway. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we're seeing for a lot of MSPs is that there is tons of M&A in the space. So I sit on an advisory board as well as I've helped clients through the M&A process from prospecting to closing, whether they're using it as a growth acquisition strategy or they themselves are positioning themselves to become acquired because they're exiting or they're doing another, part of their life or they're trying to build another business. So a lot of M&A is happening in the space. So we've come from the position to focus in on an M&A peer group that allows them to freely talk to the idea of how to increase profitability, to focus on sales and marketing, and 3, to look at all of their agreements and contracts, all the business operations of it. And so that's been really helpful to our MSPs. And then third, I think this ties right back to me a lot of times, is for our MSPs, they're trying to merge into an MSSP. A lot of our MSPs have now seen that they're losing clients because they're not willing to become an MSSP. 2, a lot of their clients assume that they're running their cybersecurity and they're not. So now they have to hurry up and get it before another MSP comes in and takes the account. And then third, and this is probably where I love this piece the most, is a lot of new people are coming into the space and they're trying to get involved in it. And so you've got a lot of new people in this industry who are not familiar with an MSP or MSSP model. And so we're trying to bridge that gap because of Fornix and other roles and responsibility. It's been so fun to see because I'm coming in with my hands in people, right? I'm working on it every single day with our clients.
So many vendors, they struggle with partner recruitment and enablement. What are some of the best practices that you've seen that work well to attract high quality MSP partners?
Oh, I love this. So one of our clients right now who we're launching in this space, it's funny because they showed me their ideal client profile and we had to fix it. And it was a small fix. There was about 30% of adjustments that needed to be made. So I think when you come into the space, guys, you have to understand the MSP you want, right? If they're an MSP who's a one-man shop, a lot of times that's a break fix. They're not into maybe more of a more mature solution stack. So you've got to get clear on your ideal client profile. That's what makes engagement, enablement, and then retention work, is because you understand who you are going to try and go after, right? Who you're trying to recruit into your partner program. Second, and this is probably, which is really something that I raise my hand every single time, is when you know your ideal client and you're going after them, remember, they have 2 to 3 other folks that they work with because sometimes MSPs can't provide all of the solutions, so they have other MSP partners. I would ask for a referral. Who else do you know in your industry or who else do you work with that would be a good fit for us to work with and talk to? Sometimes they forget that opportunity is because they think, I got this one. He actually has probably 5 or 7 people he knows. And then third, again, looking at them as a whole business. Here's the thing. When you can provide marketing assets, sales assets, training, providing that overall business experience, now you're really selling to someone who's going to stay a long time. When you're trying to just transact with them and say, here, just buy my product as a vendor, they're like, great, I've got this solution. But how are you going to help me grow my business? Are you providing MDF funds? Are you helping me understand my business as a whole? How can I do better? How can I win more deals? Because guess what, guys? They're going to do more business with you because you look at them as a whole business instead of a transaction.
I just keep wanting to go preach.
Good.
It's not simple, right, Paul? You're thinking,
It ain't.
sure, these are the basics. And I'm like,
But they're not. They're not.
They're not.
You're right. They are. I have to be careful how I phrase it because It's a story for another day.
Hey, there's no filter. You can edit it out.
No, it's the thing. It was funny. We were talking about, my wife and I were talking about this, the different words being from different countries. So if you say in America, it's so simple, that's completely normal. If you say
Right.
something is simple in the UK or Ireland, they think you mean simple-minded and you're picking on someone, calling them not smart. And it's just, I was trying to be very careful there on where I was going with it. But to your point, it isn't that it's rocket science, but it's in the melee of the business world that we're in, people forget about the basics. People forget about these simple things that I remember my father, when I was little, telling me, you know what, this is how I approach fundraising. Is what he used to do as a director of development for a school for the deaf.
Wow.
And he used to talk about, I don't look to ask people for money. I look to educate them about what we're doing, treat them as a friend, and just stay engaged and listen and talk and just be engaged with them. And that's what it was all about. But it was all about that communication. It was all about hearing where they were going, educating. It's the same thing today. It's just a different industry, but same sort of thing. But so you're also involved in a company, Channel Mastered, which offers resources on channel trends and strategies. How do you stay ahead of the curve in such a rapidly evolving space?
Well, I'm really thankful because my role at Channel Mastered is their CMO. And I am on a plane every week. That means I'm in front of our audience. I'm in front of the MSPs. I work with our clients who are MSPs and MSSPs. So I have the opportunity to have both sides of the conversation, right? From a vendor point of view, as well as a business owner point of view when it comes to an MSP and MSSP. So Paul, I am in it every day. I am not removed from it. Many CEOs are removed from the work because there's 20, 30 people between them and the work. What I like to do is remove all of that and actually be right there in the mix of everything. And so if you're going to say, Char, what makes you successful in crossing over multiple industries, having all these roles and responsibilities, is I am closest to the work. I am there speaking. I am there training. I am there listening. I am there serving. And so when someone says, well, Char, how can a vendor get more partners? Well, here's the basics. And they're just like, why aren't we doing that? And I'm like, because you're so removed from it. Right? You're so deep in other things that you forgot about the customer you're dealing with. What customer is going to help you grow your business, but you're so far away from it. So first things first, when I work with any of the organizations that I represent, I'm always closest to the work. I'm willing to get on the plane and travel and take red eyes and be in multiple zip codes and time zones. Being in Australia, I was 15 hours ahead and I still had the US time to work. So I think one of the things that it really credits to my success is I'm willing to put the work in and I'm willing to see it through. And a lot of times I think people forget that's part of the formula of being able to train and be an expert and authority in channel building because I build communities. I've done it. I've lived it. I am it. But I'm closest to the work every single day.
That's great advice. That's fantastic. Now, you talked a little bit about your M&A background previously and some of the steps that people need to take. But how do you see M&A affecting the MSP space or the MSP landscape? And what else, besides what you already mentioned, should channel vendors do to be prepared in the next few years?
Oh, gosh, I love this question. So, guys, when I look at M&A, there's two parts of it. One is you do an M&A for growth, right? It's an acquisition strategy that helps you grow. You can grow your current MSP, and when you acquire one or two, your additional revenue you're adding. So it's a growth by acquisition. Totally awesome. Second thing that I see in the M&A space that's happening for many of my MSPs is, well, sure, I'm not ready to get acquired yet. I said, that's not the point. The point is it's a good business plan for you. If you're not profitable, if you're not using the right solutions in your stack, if you're not having the best contracts, right, where you can say, hey, I've got at least 12 months to 24 months of services being contracted to my partners, you're not going to be ready even for an M&A when it does come. So when I think about it, this is my thing. M&A strategies are best for business development. If you're going to look at a business and say, how can I be more profitable? How can I increase my EBITDA? How can I get ready for an acquisition, whether I'm going to acquire or be acquired? If you're doing all the best practices now, how much easier is it later? It's 10 times easier versus, 10 years midway, you're like, hey, sure, now I'm thinking about getting sold. I'm like, great. So how long is it going to take to get your books fixed? And they stop. Or they realize they weren't profitable. They were making revenue, but they weren't paying themselves first. How many MSPs I know pay themselves less than $10,000 a month? How many of them? Because one, they're putting it back into the business, which is understandable. But two, they're not adopting a profit first. And I recently co-wrote the book, Profit First for Cybersecurity and Profit First for IT and MSPs. And as we know, if you're not profitable, it doesn't matter whether you're going through an M&A process. You have to be profitable in order for you to grow and expand your business. And so I'm so thankful that I was able to co-author a book with Profit First and that methodology, because it's really helping our MSPs. Some of my best MSPs who are going through M&A right now, they've adopted those principles as part of their best business practices. That is a lot more successful. So what I'm seeing in the space right now is it's to be M&A ready. It's not necessarily to be M&A and go through it. It's just to get business ready for it.
It's funny, as you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about was getting ready for that and making sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. One of the things that some of our partners have been making us more aware of is the ESG rating that many companies have.
Yes.
Does that play into this at all for MSPs looking to get their ducks in a row, as it were?
So some of the companies who are going through acquisition, ESG is a part of that framework. It's a framework, really, when you think about it, right? Environmental, social, right? And environment. One of the things that's critical is that in your governance and compliance, right? Like some of the ESG that we have, you have to have a compliance officer, because some of the contracts that you're going after and the vendors that you're working with, they require that as a part of the framework in order to work with you. So when you're looking at the industries that you're working towards, guys, ESG does play into that, because it's a part of what that vendor is requiring you. That's why we tell people, do you have a vendor due diligence? Is this going to be a part of your strategy when you're trying to go after FedRAMP or government, or do you have to get SOC 2 compliant in order to win these deals? Sometimes it has to happen for some of my MSPs. And so I think, Paul, the idea is, if I'm going to go after specific industries, these are some of the things that they're going to require us to have in order for us to win deals.
It's funny. I don't know that I'd be able to keep up with you. You have so much energy and so much passion for this. It is just, you were talking before about, this is why I'm so able to keep up, is because I'm so close to the work. And I'm like, no, it's because you have so much energy. But it is really, and so much knowledge. You really are such a breath of fresh air. And I'm so glad I met you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
But before we let you go, it's that time for the more than mere genius questions. These are about you, the person outside of work. So outside of work, what's an activity that you're passionate about?
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, here's the three things I love. Food. So being from Hawaii, obviously everyone considers it the melting pot, right? It's where all the worlds come together and everyone's just happy to be in Hawaii. They consider Hawaii as the number one happiest place. I love food because I feel like food brings people together. It's when you break bread, there's a different emotion with each other, right? When you serve each other, when you're family style, you learn about people and how they are in the most intimate setting, and that they're just so open. So I love food. Food is like one of my passion plays. This is probably a lot more personal, but I love, love, love the outdoors. I love the ocean. I love being anywhere I could put my feet in the sand, right? It's a Jimmy Buffett idea, but I love to be anywhere where I can be in the outdoors. And so that's why you see this big sunshine, because I need the sun. Even though I'm working all day, all night, you just need the sun. So I love to be in the outdoors. And then third, this is probably selfish. So I think for many people like us, I love to experience new experiences. So I've been on an experience high where I did a hot air balloon. I recently went in a helicopter. So I look for these wow experiences. Sometimes we get so into the grind as CEOs that we forget that these experiences allow our brain to think creatively and outside of the box. So I am an experience junkie. I love to go, well, why don't we do that? Let's go do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, here she goes again. I'm like, yep, let's go try it.
That is great. Name one book or podcast that has inspired you.
Oh gosh, Good to Great. I actually taught that. I taught it to organizations. I helped them grow. I use it as part of my my line in the sand that says, what seat on the bus are we on? And if we're going in the right direction, is there a way to bring the whole team? So when you work with Fornix, we're super collaborative, right? We ask different questions. We look at it from different angles and positions. It doesn't have to be one way. But I love Good to Great. It was an anchor in my career. It was an anchor in my entrepreneurship journey. another book, just because I love books, The Purpose Factor. I think a lot of us have to check in. And here's a rule. My purpose today is not the same, but it has remnants of that process. 20 years since I've been an entrepreneur. And so when I look at my purpose, it has changed over time, right? When I started as an entrepreneur, I had adopted 2 children. I didn't know how to be a mother, but I knew that my life was calling me to serve these 2 children who needed me. And so entrepreneurship allowed that. And so my purpose maybe then is not the same today, but the purpose to remove people from poverty. My team is completely international. Second is I want to wake up every day and know that I'm serving someone. Third, my purpose today is to lead so that I can follow, right? That's an important ingredient in being a leader, is to follow. If I can follow great, then I will lead better. And so that's been an important part of my growth personally as a leader, as well as myself, because we evolve. But I think a lot of people won't reread a book. And I'm like, reread it, because I'm sure the things you thought that you needed then are not the same that you needed today.
I so thoroughly agreed. The second time through or third time through, you absolutely come out with new tips or new ideas that you missed the first time. Or now you've got a new way to look at the question a little differently. With some more experience, you may take it a little differently. I so thoroughly agree. Do you have any mentors in your life that have meant a lot to you?
My first mentor, it doesn't matter what you believe in, but I think there's someone bigger than all of us. So I have a very strong religious belief that there is a God, and that God and the people around him are a part of that light. And so that's the first and foremost. The second mentor is my parents. I am nothing without good parents who are there to support you and guide you and give you the support you need when you need it. That's an important part of my team, right? There's a team around Shar. This is not just Shar. It's a makeup of all the people. The third mentor is failure. I think failing has allowed me to learn the things that I need to know quickly. And so I want to fail as fast as possible. That has allowed me to quickly change, figure out processes and systems, see things differently so that I can be better. And then the fourth mentor, and this is probably where my children, when I adopted my children, I made a promise to them. I said, you will not be the person you came from. That upbringing you had, the parents that you had, that situation will not be your excuse to not be great in this life. And so that has taught me the world. My children have taught me so much about how the world is. And my obligation to them is not an obligation that's painful. It's an obligation that I am responsible for. And so I've looked at my children as the way that it measures what I'm doing and what I can do better.
That's excellent. Which talent that you do not have would you most like to have?
Oh my gosh, guys, I wish I could paint. I wish I could take a canvas and do these amazing things when I'm like, how do I use Canva? We just do all this stuff. But I wish I could paint. I wish I could be artistic. That part of me just always goes, wow, look at what they can do on a canvas. That's amazing to me. And I idolize people like that because they're able to put this onto paper. And I think that's such a magic that they've got.
I could not agree more. And I am blessed every day that my wife is that. So I look at a blank piece of paper or a blank wall or an empty room and say, I have no idea where to begin. She walks in and it's like, okay, we could put this over here. We could do this thing over there. We could do this. And it's a talent that I sure don't have.
Sarah has this magic about her. See, guys,
Yep.
Sarah has this magic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Paul, I think
so
when you're designing stuff and Tara says, boy, Paul, that's really simple. She means you're in the UK sense.
Well said. Yep. That is very true. Very true. I think I know the answer to this, but if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, gosh. Hawaii is my heart, and I lived there for a long time. I did not move to the mainland until 10 years ago. I worked from there. I traveled from there. I just realized that I was using a lot of time that I could never get back because it's just a far distance, right? But yes, Hawaii is home. It will always have my heart. I have so much to give back to it. It's taught me everything from building community to being a contributor to serve. When you're on an island and there's a hurricane and there's no one else but your neighbor, let me tell you what happens. You learn really quick to work together. You learn that all the little things in life don't really matter because you need each other to survive. So Hawaii has my heart.
Understandably.
All right. Well, what profession other than yours would you love to try?
Oh my gosh. I have to say, being an entrepreneur has allowed me to cross over multiple industries. And so that's been, how do I say this? It's been fun. But one of the professions that I think would be so cool is to be a professional announcer. Like, when you guys go like to these sports games, it's wow, they're so cool. Like, how do they do that? I guess I'm always intrigued. Like, how do they get that job? How do they like win that title to be the professional announcer? That's so cool to me. I'm always like, look at that. Because they have to bring a whole crowd together, right? They have to get people energized, pumped up. They've got to remember all their lines. They got to promote. And I'm thinking, wow, that is really cool. But yes, definitely something like that or something in Broadway. I've always been enamored when I watch shows. Like, it's really cool to go, wow, I wish I could be that director. How did they put this together? How did they get all the actors in place and the costumes and the sets? Like, all of that creativity, like, I'm always how they got there. So I'm always like interested, like, wow, I wish I could do that. That would be so cool. They had to master that 10,000 hours or more, right,
Mhm.
guys? But that I am so in awe with other people's professions.
Your inquisitiveness is so pervasive. And it's infectious. So I'm going to get a little serious here in our questions
Oh,
here.
boy. Here it is.
Who's your
Art-
favorite super?
Come on, let's have the little keyboard there. Like, we got to have that because that's how we start.
Who is your favorite superhero?
Oh my gosh. There's a couple that come to mind, but one of my, it's funny, but my daughter's name is after a Mortal Kombat princess. And it's a Japanese name. And we laugh because she's got this fire about her. She's got this curiosity about her. And my daughter has always been a very strong-headed, where my son is very like, what? He just goes with the flow. He's like this big teddy bear, right? Just really soft-hearted. But my daughter's character is part of Mortal Kombat. And so that's been fun. But if I were to pick a superhero today that everybody loves, one of my favorite characters is Captain America. I think he just has this symbolism of like patriotic, like duty and responsibility. I feel like his mission is always to serve. He doesn't have really like a foe. His foe is anyone who's against the principles of freedom and happiness and camaraderie and collaborativeness. And so I feel like he symbolizes something that all of us could have is we're serving him first and that he doesn't care where you come from. It doesn't matter to him. But I've always idolized Captain America. I see the symbol and I'm like, oh, Captain America. And that reminds me of that freedom that we get to enjoy as entrepreneurs and as people, as families, right? Where else would we want to be?
You should have the shield on your background.
Like, golly, or wear the shirt, right? Every time I just Universal Studios this past week, and it was funny because I love that because it brings a lot of themes and a lot of thoughts. So I find creativity in other markets and other industries. But I saw his shield and I thought, and then I saw his character walking around and I thought, Captain America, that's awesome. I love that.
Well, here's an interesting one. What is your favorite sound?
Oh, rain.
I love it
Because
when
it
answers questions.
symbolizes flow and it symbolizes growth.
Interesting. And we've heard people say that it's calming or it's this or it's that. I've not heard those. So that's really interesting. What is your favorite song when you're stressed or you need a lift?
Journey. I love Journey. I will love Arnold Pineda. Oh, guys, I get it. Blah, 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 blah. But Journey would not be here today without Arnold Pineda, the last 15 years of resurrecting Journey. I saw them 3 times in 1 year. Like, I literally went to their concerts. I was front row. I saw the sweat on his brow. But every time I need to pick me up, I'm like, if Journey can get resurrected, I'm sure I'm going to get through whatever this is. But I just love, I have their CD playing all the time in my car. It's like, I just play to it and just let go. But yes, I love Journey. Journey is banned.
Very nice. So here's our favorite one. What is the one thing you most want to be known for after you are gone?
Well, that I build community. That I'm a beacon for bringing people together and that we're the best resource for each other and that we're going to get through this if we work on each other together. It's funny because people around you is a reflection of who you are. So if I can provide that community, I can provide that leadership. I rather follow than lead because it'll make me a better leader any day of the week. But being known for community, that is where my heart is.
Ohana. It's,
See?
Because the only reason I know that is because of Lilo and Stitch, and our daughter
Yeah.
loved it. But it really is it is an important thing that people do lose sight of. And it is so obvious. It's ingrained in who you are as a person and all the businesses that you've created and all the people you've helped over the years. It really is so refreshing to have someone that is so passionate about that specific aspect. So we can't thank you enough for coming on. Is there anything that you wanted to relay before we wrap?
I think what you guys are doing is powerful because you're allowing a conversation to happen. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Sometimes you can say it 10 different ways, but sometimes you just need that one more time. And so I appreciate you guys leading the charge that way, where you can have a conversation that's totally open, transparent, and allows people like us to work together and collaborate. There's so much good that's going to be found in what you guys continue to do. So thank you for all that you guys do for us. I appreciate it a ton. Thank you.
I thank you. And this has been fantastic. Well, I can't wait to work with you again on future projects. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So that brings us to the end of today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. If you have any other comments, suggestions, or you'd like to be featured on a future episode, please email us at podcast@mtmg.eu. Lastly, don't forget to follow us on social media. We look forward to bringing you more conversations soon. Until then, take care and know our team is always here to help. Sláinte.
MTMG, guidance that empowers.